Hello, my friend, and welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and I am Heather, and I am super excited that you are here. And I just want to let you know that you're going to hear some tips and some tricks, some ideas, all to help you live your happiest and healthiest life. It is called Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, then you can take better care of others. And my goal is to make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way. I am really happy that you're here. Your true self is waiting. So it is time to step up and thrive. Hello, my friends, and welcome. Welcome back to the Back to Me podcast. And, of all the things, I have to say this, of all the things that I do in my business as a coach, I really love podcasting. I don't know, Sarah, do you agree?
I completely agree. Podcasting is my favorite.
Right? It's so funny. Like we work so hard on all these other aspects of our business. We're like, yay, it's podcast day.
It is what I look forward to the most because, like you had mentioned before you hit record, you get to learn things. I meet so many different and just interesting people, things that I had no idea that existed. And it's just, it can be very just powerful to hear everybody's story. It really is.
It is. And we were talking before that, part of the podcast is to highlight all these amazing people and I love being able to share all of that and be a platform for that as well. And today on the stage is Sarah Wilson.
Hello, hello, hello.
And okay, we were talking about this back and forth. So you are a podcaster and
Wellness coach.
wellness
And
coach.
I also have a coaching background in neuroscience. We are a family of neurodivergents, so I felt to better understand my family, I might as well learn about it. And so I threw myself down that rabbit hole, and it really helped me understand everything myself, my children, my husband, and yeah, so
It's amazing,
good stuff. Yeah.
right? It's funny because I always ask people, what brought you into where you are now? And that's a little bit of the story, like your family, but there's also more to it than that. Because I know
Definitely more to
it's,
it.
yeah.
Yes,
So,
yes. I have what I like to call a messy story, as I know everybody does.
like, what's the name of your podcast again?
Everything's messy.
Everything's messy.
Yeah, as my background shows. It's just, I get weary, and I think a lot of people do. You're on social media, you're on the internet, and everything looks so perfect and so planned out. And, I can't, nor do I subscribe to that sort of image because it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And I want people to know not only can the mess be beautiful, but it can strengthen you and you can find the other side of that chaos and be better for it. But we don't want to rush the mess, right? We learn as we're in it. And a lot of people have said to me, well, isn't that survival? Yeah, it can be, depending on what you're going through. It absolutely can be. But life is messy, so let's embrace it.
Right? It's funny because I am a painter and I was looking at the mess of paint behind you. I'm like, somebody had a really good time. So messes can actually be fun
Yes, my
if you
children and I and my husband, we just hung it in the garage, and he was really good. He taped up all the parts that couldn't be painted in the garage, but the rest was hanging, and we just took our paintbrushes and flung it, and it actually turned out really well.
right? We have this idea that messes are always bad, but
Right.
it's just because we're wishing for something else, right?
I think so. Yeah. Again, because sometimes it hurts, it's
Yeah,
painful. And
yeah,
nobody wants to go through that. And it's and there's so many different levels of hurt and pain. And most people, me included, want to avoid that. I don't want that.
right.
But I think when you can actually not only get through the mess, you can appreciate the contrast between how bad it was to then how good it is, and then appreciate the difference, right?
That's what Abraham calls it, right?
Right.
For my friends who remember me talking about Abraham Hicks, everything is it's contrast. The
Hmm.
contrast is there to serve you so you can see and make a choice
and feel it and
and
feel it.
feel
I
it.
think a lot of
Right.
people, we have this sort of society where it's almost encouraged to avoid to do hard things, to avoid to do things that are uncomfortable. And while some of that can be true, especially if it's personal boundaries and mental health wellness, I think what gets mixed in that message is if you're not doing hard things, if you're not pushing yourself for that discipline, then how can you contrast that to anything that's good? How can you feel the highs if you don't experience any of the lows? And, that's really a hard lesson to learn, but it's necessary, I think, to go through it.
Yeah, and, like, I'm always reminded of things like Pleasantville. That not so great movie, but
Right.
it was like those people or even The Matrix, like, they lost they they even said, "We lost thousands and thousands because it was too perfect." And
Exactly.
our minds
Exactly.
struggle against that. It's a weird hardwiring we have. So so you went into the neurology stuff because of your family, but there was even more before that helped
Yes.
you.
So unfortunately, I did get my wake up call, if you will. I
Yes.
know you had a podcast titled Do,
Yep.
help yourself before the wake up call. I was
Yeah.
not so fortunate. I'm very stubborn to say the least. But at 15 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease. It is unlike type 2 diabetes. It is basically your pancreas decides to stop producing any sort of insulin. And going forward, you have to supplement with external insulin. When I was diagnosed at 15, and share my age. I'm 45 now. I was diagnosed at 15. We did not have insulin pumps. If we did, they were
Mm.
the very think of like the double the size of like the brick cell phones that just came out. Like it was
Yeah.
just not.
I had a
Um,
brick cell phone.
yes, but they weren't what it is today, and
Yeah.
so that's come a long way. But as growing up as a stubborn child, as I very much was, being diagnosed at 15, going through adolescence at that time, having to understand the world around me, was very defiant. There was nothing you could tell me. I was in denial for sure. I didn't think, and who wants to be different at that age with anything? I
I
think
wanted to
now
be
it,
invisible at 15, like,
right.
"Please, just don't let anybody see me."
Exactly. Well, and I think now some of that sort of changed and we try to encourage people to embrace their, uniqueness. But
Mm.
for me at that age, that is not what I was feeling. And it was the way that I was defiant against it was I stopped checking my blood sugars. I was, wanting to stay skinny so I didn't take my insulin, not realizing the damage that I'm doing to my body. We didn't have the coaches out there like we do now. We didn't have I think there was one support group, but it was very, very far away from where we lived. It just wasn't there for me to get any kind of that support. So, my parents, they did the best they could and they weren't given any support.
Right, and it's funny, like, at that age and, I mean, I remember being that age, you don't understand long-term impacts, like the
Of
health
course not.
impacts of
No,
smoking.
absolutely
Otherwise, we
not.
wouldn't have done all the stupid
We
things we
wouldn't make
did,
the decisions that we make around those
right?
ages. Yeah,
We had
no,
to go through it, I guess, but
well, and to be honest, the doctors would say, you need to make sure that you are taking care of yourself because you're going to get kidney failure or you're going to have amputations. It didn't mean anything to me. That didn't process. You could have
no.
told me the worst horror story you could have possibly told me, and it didn't resonate with me. For one, we think we're invincible at that age.
Oh,
Nothing
yeah,
bad is going to happen to us. And two, I just couldn't. I couldn't deal with it. I didn't know how.
right,
And so, fast forward into my 20s, you start to grow up and you think, oh, maybe I should care a little more. Maybe I should start taking care of myself. And then, I had my children late in life. My first child was born at I was 31. So it was almost crunch time where now it's really serious. You have a very high A1C and now you're going to have a baby and you need to fix all of that before the baby is born and just all of this stress and havoc. And
right.
then my son came along 18 months later and again this is I should back up a little bit. Back when I was first diagnosed, I was told very much like the movie Steel Magnolias, I was told I shouldn't have children.
Mm,
And for the longest time, I thought I had told myself, well, then I'm just not going to, which is why I was so late in life that I had them.
yeah,
But again, there was no merit for that. There was no basis. Had I taken care of myself, had I listened to the right people, probably would have been much stronger to handle that stress. I unfortunately was not. Thankfully, my children were born, beautiful, healthy, blessed to have that. But it did take an enormous toll on my body, so much to that 6 days before I turned 43 years old, I had a heart attack.
Which is crazy.
It's crazy. And it wasn't because of high blood pressure and it wasn't because of high cholesterol. It was due to uncontrolled blood sugars and the copious amounts of stress that I mostly put upon myself on top of life stress, right? And I had no way of how to cope with that stress, right? No way to know what to do with that. And so I'm laying there and it's almost one of those surreal moments that you hear. They're telling me they're rushing me to the cath lab. They have to put in a stent. I'm sort of just in another world, in another land as this is happening. And I remember just thinking, God, please just give me another chance. Please just give me another chance. I don't want this to be the last time I see my family. Just give me another chance. Up until that point, I hadn't taken any responsibility that it was me that needed to change. I didn't take any accountability that I had the power to change what I was doing. So all of these lessons sort of come crashing down at the same time, right? It's wave after wave of just crashing on me of these, the light bulbs coming on. And so then I'm in this new, fortunately I'm in the hospital a couple of days. I get out and it's like, okay, I'm renewed and I need to do the right thing. So at that point, I had put lock, stock, and barrel into what the doctors were saying and everything they told me that I believed that I needed to do. I was fortunate because of my age. They had a sort of a um, cardiac rehab on steroids that was a little more intensive that I could take. And so I took it. And I just wanted to soak everything up. And it's based off of this Dr. Ornish who created it. And it is mostly vegan, plant-based related, along with the, American cocktail they give you after you have a heart attack.
Right.
A statin, low blood pressure medicine, beta blocker, and a baby aspirin. And about, I don't know, 3 months into it was a long program. By the time I finished, I was more sick.
Oh my gosh.
I had more ailments than I had ever had, even with the chronic illness that I had before. There was so much that I didn't understand. I was severely anemic to the point they were talking about a blood transfusion. I mean, it just wouldn't stop. And I just had to stop for a minute and say, I need to become my own advocate. I need to figure out what is happening, what's going on. And again, having to learn things the hard way, right? I had done it their way. I was faithful to what they said, and it made me worse. So,
Right.
and let me preface this by saying I have no judgment towards those who choose to be vegan or plant-based. If that works for you, that I'm ecstatic for you, that's great. It did not work for me. It was
Yeah.
not healthy for me, and it did not do what they promised it would do. So as I start to educate myself, I find the carnivore diet. I read all of the things that are happening and I throw myself down all these different rabbit holes and start reading on the medicine. And again, they had prescribed me a statin. I didn't have high cholesterol. So
Right.
it was very staggering to me. Why are you treating me with something that I don't even have? Right. Protocols. It's their standard cocktail. Same with the high blood pressure. I was literally passing out.
Right.
Thankfully, my family's with my type 1, they were sort of know what to do with that stuff, but it wasn't because of being a type 1, it was the blood pressure medicine. So I'm thinking these things should not be happening. This is not okay to have these, side effects, if you will, just to get the benefit that they're telling me I'm going to have. So after extensive carnivore, after extensive changing my diet, I was able to come off all my meds, safely. Again, I don't recommend doing that on your own. You need to take your responsibility and talk to your doctors. But I knew it was making me worse and I had to be drastic to have drastic change. So I was able to do that. And that sort of led me to the wellness coaching, because after I started to see the proof in the pudding, to see the differences, to see the change, I needed to shout it from the rooftop. Somebody needs
Right.
to know about this. And not only that, to see my blood sugar come into control. I had always been very high running anyway, which I shouldn't have been. And the biggest part, or one of the biggest parts, I would say, was learning how to set boundaries for myself, to give myself self care with my children, and actually implement the self care, right? A lot of people talk about it, they talk about life, balance, and all these things, but it's really that step of actually following through and being honest with yourself. How are you going to do this? For the longest time, especially when my kids were younger, I dealt with such mom guilt. I mean, the demon of mom guilt was just attacking me from every way. And so I didn't put a lot of self care into myself. I was just so grateful to have my kids that all of my energy went into them.
Right.
I had nothing left over to give to myself.
Well, yeah,
And
and think of the like you demonstrating that to them, like you aren't worth taking care of,
100%.
which and I agree so much on that. Um, People will make a decision, but they don't take the action, and they don't take the responsibility for that action because there's so much they can blame on not taking the action. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still you have to make it
You
happen.
have to. You have to. And that's hard. That was hard medicine for me to swallow as well, because I had gone so many years not only completely ignoring the problem, but not trying to be proactive to do anything about it. So as I learned more of this wellness and how food can actually heal, and not just cardiac issues, not just diabetic issues, but like a plethora of other things, if you're eating the right things. And again, that is by trial and error. There is no one size fit all plan that I can recommend to anybody. It is individual, because you are individual and you are unique and you have different needs than I do. So it's finding those herbs and supplements and food and all of these things. Like I said, those who are on the vegan or plant-based diet, I'm sure it's working for them. They are, continuing to commit to it. It was not in my body, so I had
Right.
to find the alternative.
Well, and I think we really love to just have one answer. Let's like people because then you don't have to spend energy thinking about it. And we love to protect our brain energy. Just tell me this one thing that I have to do. But but it doesn't work.
Mhm.
And we have so much evidence that it doesn't work. I mean, I always joke that everybody's an experiment of one, and my clients will come to me and say, "Hey, have you heard of this?" I'm like, "No, I'll try it and see what happens, and I'll
Sure.
let you know what happens." And I've
Absolutely.
probably tried them all. And I will tell you, vegan for me is the worst decision. Also, raw was the worst one, a really bad decision for me. For some people, like I had clients who it was giving them amazing results, even paleo. I couldn't even go all the way paleo. I have to be a flexitarian
I
for my
love that.
body to be happy.
Yes, yes.
And and the one size fits all, like I've seen it happening in the medical industry because they have so much going on. I know that it just simplifies, but I had the same thing happen when I had my stroke. They said, "You have to take aspirin every day." I said, "Why?" And they told me why, and I said, "But I don't have any of these things that you're trying to say that it's gonna stop." So, I'm more of a in my lifestyle, I'm more of a danger of falling down and bleeding to death than having another stroke.
Right, right,
So
right.
I'm like, I'm
Well,
making the decision for
the
myself.
yeah, absolutely, and it was the same argument to me. The cardiologist would tell me, "The statin will prevent the next heart attack. Now you're susceptible to having them, it will prevent." But as I did the study and the research, we're talking less than 1% that statins have helped another heart attack occur, less than 1%. But the side effects of that drug are just a list long of things that I don't want any part of.
No.
No part of. So I knew I had to make my own changes. And again, please don't get me wrong. I will say that especially in the United States, our emergency medicine, bar none, if you're in a car accident, if there's something, crucial, acute that needs to be taken care of me, I had to be rushed to the cath lab. Bar none, it's the best. But
Yeah.
I always say we are lacking in the maintenance of medicine. We are missing the whole entire football field of goals we can be making with not knowing the maintenance of medicine. And that's the frustrating and sad part about it.
Yeah. And food, um, I find the food industry marketing is amazing.
Yeah.
And you
And
don't, and it's hard because that like being patient enough to experiment on, does this make me feel good? Does this support me? Does and without, I mean, I think this is why coaching and support groups are becoming more and more prevalent, is because you need someone to help you move through that process,
absolutely,
especially if you're
absolutely.
having a frustrated, this isn't working day.
Right. Well, and most coaches, and it sounds like you're probably in the same boat, come to coaching because of their own personal experiences,
Yeah.
but with an understanding that we know everybody's different. We know that we're going to approach it in a completely unique way based on what you tell us, but that we do have a few tricks in the bag that we can at least start to do trial and error to see where you're going to land on that bell curve. And I think that makes people feel understood
Mhm.
and relatable. I can't tell you how many times I've been gaslit in a doctor's office because they tell me, "Well, your labs are normal." Well, that's the most false thing. Ri
Normal in quotation
Right.
marks.
Compared to what?
I know.
Just because you're grading on a bell curve and I didn't fall outside the last part of the bell curve means I'm normal? Like, give me
And
a
who's in
break.
that bell curve? That's what I wanna know.
Exactly. You are your own best advocate for yourself. You know how you feel, you know what you don't feel. And I'm not saying I have a medical degree and I'm a doctor, but I know what works and doesn't work for me. And I know what I'm feeling. And you can't tell me I'm not feeling that.
Yeah.
So it
And we
it
don't
it was
dismiss it anymore to, "Oh, she's just hysterical,"
right. Right.
right? Or I have seen it actually happen, but, for the most part, that's not happening anymore, right?
For the most part. And when it does, you need to be confident enough to find another doctor
Yeah,
because you're not going to get results or the things that you're looking for. And that's so sad. That's really
yeah,
sad. And I pray and I hope that one day functional medicine will sort of step in as the, you know, barrier that we sort of are drawn towards versus conventional medicine. Again,
right.
emergency medicine bar none, the absolute those doctors know what they're doing. But
And we need those people. I mean,
absolutely.
having been
Yeah.
there once or twice in the last couple of years, I've not spent, I'm 58 now, I hadn't been to any ERs for my entire life until I suddenly hit a stroke, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, is this what goes on here?"
Right. Right.
So,
But
they
grateful that it was there.
oh my goodness, yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
grateful that I'm in Canada because strokes can be expensive,
Yeah.
friends.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Well,
the what I think would be a super interesting model is, like, functional medicine. You spend your time there. When something happens to you, that's when you go to the ERs or the functional medicine
sure.
doctors, like, "This is what's going on, and this is the best way to address it," because we are gonna have stuff come up and happen and, cancers and, well, maybe not if
Right.
we get our diets in order, but, um,
But
there's
there are chances of something some sort of ailment that you're going to have to go through. And it would be nice and I would love to see more of a bridge between Western and Eastern,
mm,
medicine because I have to take insulin every day via an injection or via a pump, and there's no supplement for that. So that's my Western medicine.
yeah,
But my Eastern medicine is my berberine that helps me regulate the blood sugar and other things that I'm taking magnesium and all of these things that you can sort of incorporate with the Western medicine that's necessary. And I think it can be symbiotic. It should be. It
yeah,
should be. Again, you have to listen to your body and what it needs. And I will tell you one of the other things that was so vital that I learned was, we have this blanket thing of self-care, right?
yeah,
And so what does that include? Nutrition was obviously the one first thing that I needed to fix. And then mentally, because I was under just so much stress. And I can go back a little bit. The day that it happened,
mhm.
at the time, I'm living in California now. At the time, I was living in Colorado. And God bless you all that deal with snow. I am not one of those people that can deal with snow. I've
It's
had
snowing
people
right now, by the
yeah,
way.
I can't. I've had people tell me, "Oh, you have a love-hate relationship with it." No, I have a hate-hate relationship with it. But I'll get to why. So, it's a Friday, and we had just had a hellacious snowstorm, and I have to go out and shovel the driveway, which I didn't know it is actually a very common occurrence after people shovel snow that they have a heart attack.
Yep. Pretty
Had no
much.
idea. Didn't know that was a thing at all. And mind you, we were in the Springs at the time, and that was over 6,000 feet elevation, and I was just not there was I
Oh
was
my
it
goodness.
was just a loaded gun.
You were just like, hey, let me go do this.
It was just terrible. So Friday night, I'm like, oh, I have like, it wasn't pain. I had no back pain, no jaw pain. And this is something I want women to really especially listen to, men too, but it's mostly women. There were no like signs that I can point back to that said I was having nothing.
It's very
No
different.
no jaw pain, no back pain. There was a little discomfort, but it wasn't chest pain. It was more like I had pulled a pectoral muscle shoveling with, the snow. It was not painful. I didn't need, I didn't take Advil, I didn't take anything. But I noticed that night I couldn't lay in bed. I needed to sit up. And it wasn't because I couldn't breathe. I was just more comfortable sitting up. So I slept in the chair last night. By Saturday, I seemed okay. Nothing like I couldn't tell you anything significant. Sunday, it was just weird. My sugars were fine. I couldn't tell you that my sugars were out of control. Didn't have a headache. I was walking fine. I wasn't losing balance. But because of my diabetic history, my oldest says to me, Mom, I think you need to go get checked out because I'd rather explain to my sibling that had to go just make sure you're okay, then explain why the firemen are coming through the house and you're passed out on the floor. That's all I needed to hear because as moms, as women, you don't want to take the time to go check yourself out. And as she's telling me this, I'm like, no, I need to start dinner. It's going to be fun. Like this will pass, blah, blah. Out of the mouths of babes, had she not said what she said, I probably wouldn't be here.
Right.
And it's still snowing. So what do I don't ask a neighbor for help. She's old enough to stay and babysit. So I drive myself to the hospital in the snow. And the whole time the narrative in my mind is that I think that the hospital is going to tell me, "You crazy lady, you're having a panic attack. Just go home. You're fine." Like that's the narrative in my mind. Almost turning around at several times. Finally pull into the emergency parking lot. It's like ice on the ground. I'm like, I don't want to walk in here. Like everything that should have kept me from going in, it did. Finally make it in. It's not busy. They rush me or they put me in triage, and the little man hooks me up to the EKG, and he's like, and I have an EMT background, so I kind of know what I'm looking for. And the machine is this way, so I'm not looking at it yet, but I see his face, and it just sort of drains of color, and he disappears, doesn't say a word to me. So I turn around and look up at the screen, and most correct, the right way the EKG should be is the lines are going up and down and you're breathing and it's fine. Mine were going underneath
Oh,
severely.
that's not so good.
That's not so good. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, maybe he went to go get another machine. Like maybe there's something wrong with the machine. He returns with about 9 other medical staff. They kind of ascend on me, completely strip me down. All of a sudden, I've got 2 IVs going into my arms, and they're telling me, and they put all my belongings on my chest, and they're telling me, "You're on the way to the cath lab. You have a blockage, and it needs to be taken care of." And it happened so fast.
Right.
Happened so incredibly fast. And all I can think of is, I just want another chance. I need to make this right. So I really say this story for women to pay attention to. Your body might be whispering the most silent whisper, but listen to it. Because I'm telling you, if it was just me, I probably wouldn't have gone.
Well, and women die most often from heart attacks because they think that it's the typical symptoms, and it can be just fatigue, which we have all the time.
We have all the time. Well, and let me give you some scary statistics.
Yeah.
More women, okay, 1 in 2 women die of cardiac failure, which is the number 1 reason women die. Breast cancer is way below that.
Right.
1 in 2. 1 in 3 men do, but 1 in 2 women. That is an astounding statistic, and we're not talking about it. And it really has to do with how you are managing stress. And one of the things that I hate and I do not subscribe to, everybody's like, "Well, you have to lead a stress-free life." That is bananas because that's never going to happen. That's not true. You have to learn to live and cope with the stress that you are 100% going to experience and how well you, what are you doing? When I went through cardiac rehab, I realized I didn't even know how to breathe properly. My breathing was very, no, seriously. I know people
I'm a
laugh.
yoga teacher, so I understand.
My breathing was very shallow. I mean, I was getting oxygen, but was not intentionally and deliberately breathing. There was no belly breaths. I didn't even know what that was. I mean, and these are huge things that women should not only learn if you don't, but take it seriously. I mean, to the
Yeah,
point where I had to build up to it. I would be sitting at a traffic light and just remember, okay, I need to fill my belly with air. I need to make sure that I let it out through my nose. Like all of these things, it sounds so stupid, but it's a huge benefit.
right. There's like so many simple things that are like our body knows how to take care of itself for the most part. And there's so many simple things you can do that nobody ever told you. And
Exactly.
you will feel better and you will feel happier. So self-care for me, I don't talk about, stress-free life. And in fact, one of my favorite topics of conversation is there's no such thing as work-life balance.
Absolutely.
Right?
I
That's
want
one of
a
my
hundred.
favorite things because people get, "What?
They get mad.
They
They
get
get
mad
mad.
because
Mhm.
like, that's a huge industry, work-life balance.
And
It's not gonna
it's a
happen.
fallacy, and we shouldn't buy into it because it's setting us up for disappointment, number 1, and it's also setting up this unrealistic expectation that we will never achieve. It will never be
We're a
achievable.
constant failure.
Exactly, exactly, and it's so sad, and I think one of the things too that I learned, nutrition being very most important, but that it also goes with your mental wellness, which is your stress level,
Yeah.
and then your body. Where are you moving your body? I had always been a walker, maybe a jogger, cardio was more my thing. Discovering lifting weights and pulling things, pushing things, that contrast, I had no idea what my body wasn't doing. And again, you talked about your body knows how to heal. If we just listen and give it the very few basic things that it needs, your body will do the best it can to get to homeostasis. It will do the best. It'll work for you. It'll be the most thing that works the best for you. We just have to give it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I had been asking my body for so long, just live on caffeine, distraction, nothing intentional, no fulfillment, all the, and again, my children aside, like I was never resentful for taking care of my children, but I didn't know the healthy boundary to have for myself and then it was okay. And
Yeah.
now they see that, they know what I'm doing, and they have commented how less grouchy I am, which
Which right there improves relationships.
absolutely, I mean, I was crabby mom, and not because I was resentful or that I didn't wanna be there, that was just how my body was dealing with what I
Your
wasn't doing for it.
capacity to be, you know, you're being everything you could be. Because
Yeah,
everyone's doing the best they can with what they
exactly,
know. So expand your knowing
exactly,
and then
exactly.
do something with it,
Follow
right?
through, follow through, and I'll say really quick, I've done a lot of deep dives into the difference between motivation and self-discipline, but
Ooh,
I'll go farther than
we need
that.
another episode on that.
Okay. I'll go farther than that and say you have to know your why in order for any of those to be real. You can sit there and say, I have all the motivation. I'm going to write a new book. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Self discipline, the little habits that we put into our places to have that self discipline. But if you don't know your why, if you don't know why you're getting up every morning, if you don't know what's fulfilling you, if you don't know what the coping mechanisms are to take on your day, the motivation is just going to dwindle and you're going to be
Yeah.
right back to the same spot.
That's why, the end of January, no one's in the gym anymore for their New Year's resolutions. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I said I was going to, but it's snowing.
Well, and that's true, and that's the other thing too. I think we live in a society where it's sort of encouraged not to do hard things, and some of that may be true, especially if you are dealing with mental health wellness and you are setting boundaries and
Mental
there's things.
wellness, that's a good word.
Right? Yes, yes, but I think for those of us that should be pushing ourselves to do those hard things, what we don't understand is the benefit after we choose to do those hard things. The contrast of knowing something joyful or happy is that much more, that you can feel the difference in the levels, and it just makes it so much more worthwhile. But if we are just neutral and looking for that safe space and avoiding the hard things, that's where you're going to have some issues that are going to come into play that are not going to serve you.
And it's boring.
That too.
I mean, thinking about mental health, like people do stupid things when they're bored that aren't healthy for them. I'm bored. I'm going to go eat a pint of ice cream. That's my go-to.
Ugh.
But I know I'm non-dairy. I've been non-dairy for 25 odd years.
Wow.
But still, man, I would really love a pint of ice cream sometimes.
Well, and I always try to say, and of course, I'm sure that you have your reasons for being dairy free, but I always try to aspire to the 80-20 rule. If 80% of the time I am doing my carnivore or whole food based, I am doing my workouts, I am making sure I'm taking those mental breaks and working on my breathing. I have dabbled in yoga, which I do enjoy very, very much. I have to be in the right mindset though to really get down on the
You
floor
have
and
to
do
be in
that.
the right with the right teacher too.
That too, yeah. But those things, it's so important that if we use distractions sometimes, we use excuses, and sometimes they might be really, really great excuses. But is it right? Is it what you should lean into? And that's where I feel we should just push ourselves a little bit more. And then you have the 20% where if you're going out to dinner, if you're going to a birthday party, enjoy life. That's what it's for. But if you can do 80 and 20, you're that much closer to a more healthier
Isn't
you.
80% still an A?
I don't
It
think
might
so.
not be an A plus, but I don't do dairy because I can't digest whey protein. Really,
Okay.
there's
Okay.
no other reason than that. And of course,
Interesting. That's very interesting. You bring up whey protein. I recently discovered that when the protein shakes that I was using had whey protein in them, and they actually spiked my blood sugar. And I couldn't figure out why my blood sugar was spiking. So those of you who may be diabetic or have blood sugar issues, be careful with whey protein because it does
yeah,
give you sugar imbalance.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It was a naturopath who I had no idea. Like I was one of those. I was still in a CPA then. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I tell you, when I cut out dairy, suddenly my asthma was gone.
Wow.
My digestion was better, but that was my body, and I had to have someone help me.
Of course, well, of course. And
Right?
again, I think, like I had mentioned, back when I was diagnosed with type 1, we don't have any of this. So now we have copious amounts, and that's good. There's space for everyone, which
Yeah,
means whatever you're dealing with, there is somebody out there for you. It may take a few to find what works for you, but
they're worth
that's,
it.
yeah, yeah. And I'm always reevaluating. I'm always trying to level up to go to the next level. So somebody that might have helped me before on this level may not be who I need on the next level.
Yeah,
I like to call that a shivot, which is a pivot and a shift at the same time. So we're going to shiv it to the next level and make sure, that you're reevaluating constantly because the journey never ends,
yeah.
right?
As long as you're alive.
Exactly, exactly. And so even now that I'm almost 3 years post heart attack, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still figuring it out. And because I'm a sort of a research nerd and data nerd, all of these rabbit holes I continue to fall down. They're just
That's why
never
I like you
ending.
guys because I'm a skimmer. I like to have friends who are the divers.
Yeah.
And I'll skim along, and I'll just when I need something. So I
Take
do with
it.
my
Yeah.
husband. I'm like, "Can you research this and just give me the Coles notes?" And he likes doing that. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Thank you."
See?
It's
Perfect balance. Yeah.
perfect balance. So when you're helping people, you are a one-on-one person. You are a
Yes, I right now, predominantly right now, I'm working with people either diagnosed type 1 or a family member that might be taking care of type 1. So I work with a lot of parents whose children have just been
mm,
diagnosed. And they don't know what to do. And that was a really soft spot in my heart because my parents had no idea what to do. They didn't have any direction. They were given a bag of needles and a bottle of insulin and sent on our way to deal with me.
right.
So I want to support in that area as much as I can. And that's hard. And their worlds have just been turned upside down they don't know how to navigate with their child. And especially, I have a client who her infant was just diagnosed. She's a brand new mom, brand new baby, and now this. And it's like, those are the people that I really want to be there and support. But I do all wellness, any autoimmune, chronic illness that you're dealing with. I definitely can speak to you, talk to you. And then the neurodivergent side, the neuroscience has taught me that everyone, again, is unique and different, but there are different pathways that you can try to go down, and different foods that may or may not be causing more erratic behavior or offset behavior, and then just different environment things that might be triggers, that just kind of just going down those rabbit holes and helping them also figure out how to navigate and process, because
Right.
we all need, again, we're all messy. We all need help.
We're all messy. Behind the screen, you don't want to see it. It's a total mess. I pretend I'm Zen. You just went full on with the mess behind you.
Well, again, that balances us out, right?
Yeah,
There it is.
we are two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
I love
exactly.
And where do they find you?
Yeah, so my website is Everything's Messy Wellness, because you can have mess in the wellness. Everythingsmessywellness.com. You can find me on Instagram, Everything's Messy Podcast. I'm on X at Everything's Mess. Facebook, same thing, Everything's Messy. Send me an email, text, message, whatever. I would love to talk to you, help you, whatever I can do. Because again, finding this, I like to call it sort of freedom. And I just want to share it with whoever needs it, because I wish I had that.
Yeah, right. And I will put all of that in the show notes so people can grab onto that and find you in all the places, which
Love
love
it.
all the places.
Yes, got to have all the places.
And of course, because I know you listened to the podcast, so I'm going to ask you this. A final word of wisdom for our friends.
I would say, gosh, let me make this short. I would say, first, listen to yourself. Don't let anybody gaslight you. You know you the best. And then the second part, I would say, take accountability, take responsibility of your part in it, and start building from there.
Amazing. That's so good. I feel like that's a mic drop right there. Oh my gosh. And if we could all just do those two things. Wow.
Yeah.
So good.
For me, the painful was taking the accountability.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So much. This is like, I feel like we could probably keep going, but we gotta respect people's time.
Absolutely.
Their drive or their walk is only so long.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Heather. This has been amazing.
Fabulous. I definitely have to check out the Everything's Messy. Yes, I think you tried a book about that.
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
Okay, awesome. Friends in podcast land, you know who needs to hear this podcast. And if you share it, you are already making the world a better place. Isn't that amazing? Just one click of the button. Beautiful. Share, send, give us some love, and we will see you next time. Bye. Hello, my friend. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you found it useful and you're like me and you want to help others, please share this, comment, like, subscribe, all of those things that will help this podcast to be found by more people. And if you found it useful, there's a chance that someone else will find it useful as well. If you ever have any questions, I am here to answer your questions. I would love to help you. My direct email address is info@heatherstewart.coach. You can also find me at heatherstewart.coach. And if you go over to my website, you will find copies of the podcast. You'll find the link to my Instagram and my Facebook. And I do have a personal request because I do want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. So if you could give me a review, and my friend, I would love if you gave me a good one. If you could share this, if you could send it out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope that you have an amazing day. I hope that you are finding your way back to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend. Be well, and we will see you again next time.